Well, we were dealing with love and romance last time. Anybody remember that?
I wasn't here. You'll have to.
Oh my gosh! You weren't here? Oh.
You didn't miss me?
Well, as I say, I'm so used to seeing you and expecting you to be there, I just automatically assume you're always here because you're usually always here.
Here they come. Here they are. So you start now.
Okay. Well, I used a lot of time and went through a very interesting short story in Genesis 24. It starts with Abraham was old, and in some translations say ripe old age. And we discussed what ripe old age might mean, whether that's a good term or not a good term. And I think we decided, when things get ripe, generally they get sweet. Now my strawberries are coming on pretty well now, and if I pick them too soon, they're not as sweet as if I let them ripen another day. The danger is, if I let them ripen another day, then I only get half of a strawberry because the birds have pecked a big chunk out of them. They like them too. So, I don't know. I got a, oh gosh, what is it? I think it's one of the nature kinds of things, maybe it's National Wildlife Federation or something, that if you can check off enough things in your backyard, you can get a little certificate that you've got a, natural habitat. And I could do that. And so I got the little certificate in paper. But the other thing along with it comes, if you'll send us another $100, we can give you a metal plaque that you can post on your front door or out front. Well, I didn't do that. If I did, it would be out there and I could read it every day and I could remember who it was. But anyway, I support the birds and the butterflies and the squirrels and rabbits, and one of our dogs will kill the possums if she can get to them. One of our dogs. She was a rescue dog and had to live on her own for a while, and then when we got her, we rescued her, and she's really a good dog, but she still is a good hunter, and she will find things. She's gotten different things in the backyard, but the possums are one of the things she gets a hold of. And it's a real problem. You ever had a dog that's a good hunter like that? Rabbits and things? Well, they don't surgically kill them. They grab a hold of them and they shake them and break their neck and shake them so that when they're done, they've got blood all over themselves. And if they're mostly inside dogs, then they're bringing that into the house, which means you got to give them a bath. So anyway, but that has nothing to do with being a ripe old age, and that's where where we started off. Abraham was old, and he asked one of his servants to go find a wife for Isaac, because Abraham was, we believe by the nature of this part of the story, was on his deathbed and couldn't take care of it. I found it quite interesting. They're saying that Isaac is 40 by now. And I found that quite curious that he would be this old. I mean, if he is supposed to be the one that carries on the line, and through him there will be so many progeny that, like the sands on the seashore and the stars in the heaven, it seems like we got to get him married quick and get started. Why wait till he's 40? And then on the deathbed, what's going on here? Why hadn't he taken care of this before? Well, it doesn't explain it to us. It leaves lots of thought for speculation. I could do a lot of speculating. But anyway, I'm not. I'm going to go on and tell. But anyway, the servant goes on to have to make a promise that he will go find a wife. But in this promise, he's not supposed to take Isaac with him. Leave Isaac at home. And we think the reason is that if Isaac goes with him to the relatives off in Haran, or near Haran, where he's going to go try to find a wife among the clan from which they came, Sarah's dead, Abraham's dying. There's nothing to keep him in Canaan. There's nothing to get a wife and go back to at this point. And he says, don't take him. Leave him here. Go find a wife. And then if she won't come, then free you from this pledge. But then he takes a lot of wealth, the 10 camels of his master. And there's no story about the journey, but it might take a couple of months, the commentators say. But he packs up, and then he's there. And it's in the evening, and the women are going out to draw water at the well. And then he goes through this thing of setting up these ideas that if this will happen, then I'll know that this will be the girl. And that was that if I ask her to give me a drink, not only will she offer me a drink, but she'll water my camels as well. And then I'll know she's the one. And so then finds out that she is indeed a relative. She was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, coming out with her water jug on her shoulder and so forth. And then she waters the camels, and then the servant puts a gold nose ring. I'm not sure where it went, but nowadays you see those kinds of things. And with the camels finish their drinking and so forth, the nose ring, bracelets of gold weighing 10 gold shekels. I mean, it would be pretty heavy, but it's supposed to mean it's very expensive, not so heavy that she's weighted down with all this gold. And then her brother comes out, Laban, and he's really impressed by the wealth. And anyway, the servant stays the night at their camp, and then she's asked if she will be willing to go with him, and she says yes, she is willing to go. And they head back, and then on the way back, they see this guy walking in the fields, and she thinks, oh my gosh, is he the one? And then they say, yes, that's my master. And when he says, that's my master, it means Abraham has died. Now Isaac is the master. It doesn't say Abraham has actually died, but this is the gist of the story. Anyway, and they take some maids and servants of Rebekah, so she had some standing and wealth from where she came. And let's see. And then at the end, Isaac, the servant had told Isaac all the things that he had done, and then presents Rebekah. And then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. And we would assume a strain of the story that it was Abraham had also already died because he was on his deathbed. This was the last deathbed promise that he made the servant make. But then over in chapter 25, it picks up, Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran. Joshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. Anyway, he wasn't ready to leave this world. But anyway, as we know, the Genesis is a weaving together of the priestly version, and it has a block of stories and ways of telling the story in the Yahweh's version, and it comes from another tradition and so forth. But anyway, that's what you missed. But I didn't get through dealing with all that. So anyway, back when we look at the servant is never named in this narrative. But we understand he's evidently the closest and most trusted of all of the servants. And that's why he needed to be, because he needed to be trusted, because he would have a great temptation. His master is dying. He's going to load up all of this wealth in order to go find a wife, and he needs the wealth in order to give the presents and gifts to her and her family, and show that, he's representing a man of great stature. Now, he could have just think, hey, he's dying, I'll just go be that man of great stature myself, and I'll establish myself somewhere else. But he doesn't. He's an honorable servant, and he's faithful to the task. So he gets to the region of Abraham's kinsfolk, and he does the reasonable thing. He goes to the community well. Now, we don't know if it was accidental or it was his plan to arrive toward evening when the women come out to draw water. Now, I've got to do a little research on the daily lives and how things really work, because we have these things and we're supposed to kind of understand, but we don't understand how they lived, what their daily life was like. So I would think maybe possibly to get fresh water for the evening meal and the morning meal so that it's available. Well, wells were the natural meeting place for the townsfolk, because wherever people were located, they were in their own tents and their own houses or whatever, doing their own thing. But when they gather at the well, it would be a way to interact. But the well was necessary for life. So not only the people who were kind of settled, but the shepherds who were around in the area, they would come to water their flocks, and they'd bring their animals to the well. And so there's evidently and often different trading, business transactions, and also it was the hangout for the young people. I mean, if you want to meet girls or meet boys and prospect for a mate, then this is where it happens. So anyway, it was also the place where the Bedouin culture gathered to perform the rituals of their clans. I mean, if you're going to have a celebration for a couple of days that's important to your group, well, you gather at a well because you're going to stay there a while. Anyway, and given that this was the natural and customary way that things occurred, then it increases the probability of some historical verification that something like this really did happen. Although the details could have been changed in the telling of the story. But bringing Isaac and Rebekah together was in all likelihood something very much like this. However, camels, they were a sign of wealth. But this was anachronistic. At the time that the patriarchs should have been doing these things, camels hadn't yet been domesticated. It was going to be a few more hundred years before camels would be domesticated. So that part of the story is not accurate, But in telling the story much later, if you want to say, this person is really well-to-do, you just show it by saying, they had a herd of camels. You know, today we might give their address. They live in the big houses in the exclusive part of the town or the city. They shop on, what's that, Rodeo Drive or whatever. You know, this is a way of saying they're well-to-do without just coming out and say, well, they're really rich. But no, they're well-to-do, and this kind of proves it. I'm not just saying it. This kind of proves it. So, anyway, nevertheless, these stories are meant to be teaching stories. They're didactic tales to teach religious and spiritual lessons, and that's the primary purpose and focus. But when they're doing that, historical accuracy and precision are not necessarily the number one issue. And today, with research and academia, folks are often trying to make a name for themselves by finding errors in what somebody before has said, and to show that, no, you didn't get it right, or you're totally wrong. I'm going to prove a new theory. So anyway, but they're not about academia and the way we look at history now. They're teaching stories, sort of like George Washington cutting down the cherry tree. He probably didn't, but that's a teaching story about honesty and integrity. Okay, one important lesson is the belief, the doctrine of divine providence, the hand of God or the finger of God directing historical events. Now that's very prevalent in this story as it unfolds. God is guiding this process. You know, how is it that this servant arrives at the well at this very time that Rebekah is coming out? Rebekah, this relative that is going to be so perfect for Isaac. What are the chances of that happening? And then the prayer of the servant does not ask for a sign from God, just sitting there and, God, give me a sign. Give me a sign. The servant sets the criteria himself as the sign he has determined. I found that kind of interesting, because so often today, people with tough decisions, they want a sign from God, but they won't specify what the sign should be. So when they want a sign from God, all kinds of different things could happen, and then they could say, well, that was the sign. Lightning, thunder, or, whatever. But he sets the criteria. And then the story demonstrates that his prayer is answered or fulfilled. The request and its fulfillment, they're not magical, supernatural things. They're just the everyday life things, very normal things. But the criterion demonstrates a thoughtfulness in Rebekah, hospitality to strangers, a willingness to be self-giving, polite, and gracious. And in that regard, in this setting of searching for mates and so forth, I remember that I was always welcome into the homes of the girls I dated in high school because my parents had raised me to have good manners. Whenever you speak to a female adult, you say, yes, ma'am. And a male adult, yes, sir. And thank you. And may I help you? And those kinds of things. Now, I wasn't thinking, now I've got to get in good with the parents. I was just being my parents' son who had brought me up to have good manners. But in retrospect, after a while, why was I so welcome in the homes of the girls I dated? Well, I think it was because of the good manners. It didn't hurt that I was a student athlete either, but but I think it was the good manners. But anyway, so this is what the servant is looking for in the girls at the well. Who is demonstrating character and quality of the inner being by what she's doing? So now I've gone to Clergy Institute held by Temple Israel every year, where they invite a Jewish scholar, and it's kind of like our Barton Clinton Gordy lecture series. But I haven't been able to go every year. Sometimes I have a funeral and I have to miss. But for several years, the speakers will make a comment, and it's happened many times because we are Christian clergy invited to hear this Jewish scholar. And so often that scholar will try to tell us and remind us one of the basic differences between Judaism and Christianity. And just to state, now, you are aware of this. Do you understand this? And so what they will say is that in Christianity, there is this strong emphasis in proclaiming and professing your faith with your mouth, saying what you believe, affirming different doctrine or belief. But what they will say, the difference in Judaism is that, and one of them said it this way, I am not so much concerned about your interior, personal, mental state so much as what I care about is how you treat me. How you treat me. And they were aware, as you and I are aware, that there are many Christians who profess such strong belief in Jesus, and they affirm the Apostles' Creed and the Nicene Creed, the virgin birth, the bodily resurrection, the inerrancy of the Bible, and they still have racist ideology in their head. And they can be very bigoted and sexist and be mean-spirited and hateful and rude and discourteous to people that they judge aren't in the group of the saved. Because of their belief system, they don't have to treat everybody nicely and kindly because, and particularly Calvinist kind of doctrine, God has already determined who is saved and who is damned. Far be it for me to have to go against God's judgment and be nice to the damned. I'll just have to be nice to the saved. And so, since Jews don't believe in Jesus, then I don't have to care about them and be nice to them because obviously they're the damned because of my doctrine and belief system. So in the Jewish faith, it's more than just the beliefs, but it's the tradition that they have with the Ten Commandments and all the laws that put this higher value on the doing good, doing the right thing, more than having a correct idea or doctrine in one's head. So, yes?
I'm cringed when someone comes up to me and says, God has said, He will bless those who bless your people and curse those who curse your people. And I kind of cringe, like, are you being nice for me to get something?
Oh, yeah.
I kind of cringe inside.
Yeah, that's, it's kind of like your only value is how you can do something good for me. You don't have value in yourself. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like that. We talk about tolerance. Oh, she was saying that she cringes when some Christian folks will speak to her about that the passage where God will bless those who were
the Jews.
Bless the Jews.
Curse those who curse the Jews.
And will curse those who curse the Jews. So they're going to be nice to Jewish people just so they can receive a blessing. And my response was, what makes her cringe is partly that there's no value in the person as a person who is a Jew. It's only what they can do for someone else to be the object of my being kind to them, then I get blessed. And it's not because I'm going to treat you as a person of value and worth in yourself. Let's see. So, in choosing a wife for Isaac, the servant observes the behavior in order to determine the high probability of the inner values and beliefs and disposition, the orientation toward life and the world. There's one book that I referred to before, Naomi Rosenblatt and Joshua Horowitz, Wrestling with Angels, What the First Family of Genesis Teaches Us About Our Spiritual Identity, Sexuality, and Personal Relationships. She spends quite a bit of time about this whole story because there's a whole lot there. But she uses this whole concept in this part of her chapter, and she says it's assessing character by observing action. And assessing character by observing action. And she begins by calling attention to the well. Not only is it the practical and logical meeting place, as I mentioned before, but she goes on to mention some other things that make sense, but I hadn't thought about it, and other scholars didn't mention that. Of course, I didn't read them all yet, but I hadn't run across it yet. But the well symbolizes fertility. Now, we need water. And with the droughts and things going on now, we're starting to realize how much we need water and how precious a resource it is. And there are some people that thinking that our neighbors to the south and other places want to steal our water out of Oklahoma. And we're not sure we want them to do that. But anyway, water is a precious commodity for life. So it becomes a symbol for fertility. And then she goes on to say female sexuality and the subconscious wellspring of imagination. Interesting thoughts. Anybody run across that before in reading literature? Any English teachers here? Have you run across that? Oh, you have?
I ran across that in one of the commentaries in your library, in fact.
Oh, okay. Good work. You get a gold star. The well symbolizing fertility. He read that in our library not too long ago. So, good. So, but anyway, she explains further that the well was the place to see and be seen, and it was the acceptable public gathering place. Now, some places are acceptable and others are not, but this is the acceptable gathering place. Well, what can be observed? Well, Rebecca was nice to look at. She was physically beautiful to see. But this isn't the major criteria. However, it is an important criteria, or it wouldn't have been mentioned. This whole natural, hardwired aspects of attractiveness and being appealing to the other in mate selection is something more than just song lyrics and lines in poetry. A lot of psychological research and using scientific methodology have proposed a lot of interesting theories. And many tend to bear out statistically, but we human beings are more than just chemistry. in the literal sense or figurative sense. 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen will make water. But human beings are not that way in connecting and making a life together and making babies together. It's much more complicated than that. But there are some things that seem to be kind of hardwired in our systems. That attractiveness and appeal of beauty or handsomeness generally have to do with good health and fertility that are essential to passing on our genes to the next generation. Beauty and healthy physical condition go together. The balanced proportions of the body seem to be more attractive. If I don't watch it that often, but the Miss America and Miss Universe kinds of things. If you just kind of blur your eyes, they all look alike. There isn't a big variety. That's why it's so hard to judge those contests, I guess. They have to get experts. But there are this kind of standardization of beauty. Where does that come from? Why does it evolve that way for us? And I think part of it is this sense of health that is important in the hard wiring of why are we attracted that way is because of survival of the offspring, that they will be healthy and that they will do well. The other part of that, the survival of the children, might be compromised because of what's passed on genetically, but if the one we see is deformed because of injuries, of broken bones that didn't heal right, that they don't look healthy, they may be really smart and have a handsome face or a beautiful face, but how well in these primitive times will they be able to perform the functions of life and survive long term? And how will they be able to provide either the mothering parts of the job or the fathering, providing for the family? And if you're looking for a mate, in order that your children will be healthy and strong and survive, you look for healthy and strong. And so it kind of becomes hardwired that this nice to look at kind of quality is not just superficial skin deep stuff. It's something a little more than that. Now, it has become in our modern world that beauty and looks have become too important because of commercial reasons. The selling of the beauty products, the clothes, the image is so important one's whole life long in so many ways. We look at people running for political office. They need to be attractive. And, the old tall, dark, and handsome kind of thing. We want a presidential candidate that's taller than average. You don't want a 4'9" president. As he goes to meet other world leaders, how do you do? Just what we've been conditioned to think and feel. It has become so strong, but so much of it is at a point where, with our advanced technology, it's not that critical. A little tiny person that's not too strong can work a lever and operate a huge machine that will do the heavy lifting and do the hard work. Or so much of our work, you don't have to do anything other than type or write it down, and your brilliance can do wonders. You don't have to have this great physical body, beautiful body, in order to accomplish things. So that part becomes very interesting. Also, it does affect business promotions, political success, and high office. And one of them has affected us directly. My wife Karen has gotten moved to a different area at Williams Company, and because of her position and things she's doing, she's spent a lot of money on her wardrobe. And I said, "Why are you doing that?" And he says, "Well, in my position, I really need to look good. I need to look right. And so I can't be going to work wearing old clothes that..." Okay. But it does make a difference how you present yourself at the office, at the meetings, when there's a look that creates an image that has some connection with how people value you, how they assess you. Now, a lot of it is superficial, it's shallow, but it's the real world. It's what happens. That's why pastors wear robes, because
Isn't it?
well, the image part, in that with us, this is the academic teaching robe, so that we give the image that we hope is correct, that we are an educated clergy, and that's the image. At first, I thought you were saying we wear the robe to hide our old clothes. But that would be self-defeating, because we'd throw away the robes and wear our old clothes, so the congregation would say, "I think our pastor needs a raise. He needs a new suit. Look how threadbare that suit is. Oh my gosh, we don't want him going to meetings looking like that. We got to get our pastor a new suit," which sometimes happens at smaller churches when folks, they're sending their pastor off to annual conference. They say, "You can't go to annual conference with all those other pastors looking like that. You need a new suit." And then the kicker, then he looks really sharp, and they decide to move him to another church. Oh my gosh, that backfired on us. It didn't. But anyway, the image and what it conveys about the inner person. So the pressure is very high regarding looks and one's importance in the world. But psychologically, it's linked to our need to belong, to be valued, to be accepted. It also, psychologically, it's one of the important criteria for accessing a serious problem is depression. When one stops caring for oneself, one's grooming, one's hygiene, is a strong indication that this person is really feeling low. They're depressed, and they might be so depressed that it doesn't matter anymore. And so why bother? Nobody loves me. Nobody cares. Why get dressed up? Nobody wants to be with me. Why take a bath? It's a strong indication that one's feelings of self-worth have really depleted. So looking nice, trying to look nice, trying to look your best is a sign of good mental health. I mean, even posture, shoulders back, standing up straight, or slumped and feeling low, those are kind of qualities that assess. It's an outward appearance by which we assess an inner feeling or quality. Now, caring about oneself doesn't really necessarily mean that you are vain or conceited or self-consumed, but it is important. And that's important in the dating and mate selection process. One wants the other to be proud to be seen with you. You don't want the other to be ashamed and have to hide. Love means I am proud of this person. I want to introduce the world to my special other. That's a big part of the wedding ceremony, this sense of pride and affirmation. Now, if the other is going to be someone you're proud to have with you, you want that one to have self-esteem, self-respect, care about oneself, not just for vanity's sake, but it's a gift to the other, and it's important. So, anyway, that's why this story is very interesting. Rosenblatt suggests that Rebecca is physically fit. She's graceful and athletic, as is demonstrated in the story, as she seems to easily balance her heavy water jug and gracefully can lower that jug and offer the servant a drink. And then to water all of the camels. There's 10 camels. Now, some of you may have known or heard that we've had a horse for these many years since Karen's dad thought Bobby needed a horse when he was 4 years old, and so we've started taking care of a horse for all these years, and Bobby's not interested at all, but it's a bond between Karen and her dad. But anyway, large animals need a lot of water, and if you're going to water them, it's a lot of jugs of water. Out at the barn, we've got this, it's a 10-gallon or more bucket that we fill up for the horse to have, and, we fill it up in the evening. By the time we come back the next evening, it's half empty. And so that's a lot of water. So but in camels store even more water. And so he had 10. Well, 10, as we said, that's an expression that might actually be 10, but it's a symbolic word for many. If it was 5, it would mean a few, but 10 means many. Fortunately, it wasn't 100, or she would have been there till she got old and gray, watering those camels. But anyway, the fact that she did all of that herself, she didn't just dump it out. She had to go back down to the well, get the water, bring it all the way back to where she had to water the camels. So she was working hard. She had to be really strong and physically fit to do that. But also her willingness to put herself out to do that much work for a stranger was a deep sign of character for her. She exudes this vitality and strength, as well as the hospitality, grace, this self-giving care, this nurturing and compassionate qualities of character, not only to the tired traveler, but to animals. These animals, she didn't just give them a little drink. She kept giving them water till they were filled and satisfied. And then he asked her identity. And she wasn't bashful and shy. She speaks right up, tells him who she is, who her family is, what the clan is. And so she's articulate, she's self-assured. She has this inner strength of quality, a healthy pride. Now, a lot of times pride is used as a negative. Someone is prideful. Now, it can be negative in that sense of arrogance or conceit and so forth. However, there are things we should be proud of that are good things. We should be proud of our church. We should be proud of our nation, our state. We should think well of these things because hopefully they're good. They're doing well. They are performing well. They are functioning well. They are doing good things. And I'm a part of that, and that's something I can be proud of. It doesn't have to be where pride goes too far and says, that means I'm better than you, and you're nothing compared to me. No, that's the unhealthy pride. The healthy pride is, I'm a part of something good, and that makes me feel good about myself and who I am and how I'm investing myself in the life of the world and where I'm going in life. So Rebecca is exuding those kinds of healthy pride as she identifies herself and who she is and who her family is. And she's showing poise, and she's showing this hospitality, and then this generosity of inviting him to come stay with them and meet her family. And then at the end, when she is willing to go with him. This is an important part that in the culture they would ask her, will you go with him? And then the family is saying, what? Let her stay another 10 days or so. We don't want her to go away right away, but no, she's ready to get out there and go. Now that also indicates some character qualities. Now she might just be, we could read this into it, because she could be 16, 17 years old. She just wants to get away from the heavy thumb of her parents. But we think not. It's really an adventuresome spirit, that self-confidence that I'm invited to go out into the unknown, place I've never been before. I don't know what it's like out there, but this self-confidence, I can handle it. Whatever it is, I can handle it. I can survive. I can make it into a good thing, whatever it is. So that's a strong indication of character that she's, yes, I'll go. When do we start? And so this is another indication of the quality of her character being lifted up in this story. The one of the things that was kind of weird that we aren't real familiar with that Rosenblatt mentioned was the oath of where the servant had to put his hand under the thigh or beneath the thigh of Abraham. And I'll just read this one because it gives another aspect of that if I got through too soon, which I did, I had something else to give you. It is worth noting that Abraham secures his servant's oath by commanding him to place your hand beneath my thigh. The thigh in the Bible is often used as a euphemism for sexual organs, which represent the source of Abraham's reproductive powers and the fate of his progeny. Now, this is the other part, the fate of his progeny. The image of having someone swear an oath by placing his hand on another man's genitals might jar us, but this practice, common in the ancient Near East, speaks to the lack of prudishness of those times. The privacy and primacy of a man's genitals were universally appreciated, so placing another man's hand there was a gesture of ultimate trust and solemnity. The word testament, based on Latin testes or testicles, derives its meaning from this ancient custom. I didn't know that. Now, every time you hear that, you'll have dirty thoughts in your head because of our prudishness. But anyway, a sanitized version of this oath-taking ritual serves today when a witness testifying under oath in court swears to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. Interesting. This passage and this custom, thousands of years old, is still alive in our courtrooms. Isn't that interesting? Now, at your next dinner party, you can tell your friends these interesting things you learn at Sunday school at Boston Avenue Church. Oh, they don't? I haven't had to do that.
Raise your hand.
Oh, and you just...
Raise your right hand.
Well, we better get it back to where they put their hand on the Bible. That separation and that distance weakens the vow. And in this old custom, getting that close, that intimacy, was the sign of the closeness of the bond between the two and the trust that was there. I mean, you didn't invite some complete stranger off the street or from another country to make this vow. It was the oldest and most trusted servant that made the vow, and the doing the vow this way was reaffirming that and taking that closeness to empower and to strengthen the seriousness of the vow.
See, that day and age passed.
That day and age is past. You don't want us to go back to the good old days?
Well, that would not be fair to the rest of the people that are not of the same culture. That
You mean putting the hand on the Bible for those who,
Yes.
Muslims and Buddhists and those folks.
I mean, I'm not saying that I think that's the way you ought to do it, because I'm like you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's true.
You have to now you have to take that into consideration.
Right. Well, I think we ought to have a special library of the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and you just put your hand on the library.
Take your choice.
Which wouldn't be a bad idea. The best of all cultures. These universal themes that the divine, by whatever name you call the divine, has inspired to make us human, to be just and kind, and to take care of one another so that we can survive on this earth. Yeah, that's why you have the distance. Or maybe it was just too much work. Somebody said, I don't want to get up and have to walk all the way over there to hold the Bible for this person to put their hand on it. Or, oops, what if we forgot to bring the Bible into the courtroom? It's back here in the office, or somebody stole it. Do we know why they quit doing that? Do you want to tell us why you were in court? No. Anyway, any other questions or comments that we need to cover today before we... Well, we got another 2 minutes. Yes. Square?
Yeah, modern society scruples about swearing either on.
Oh, swear.
Swear.
Oh, I thought it said square.
You know,
Swear.
I swear to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Isn't it a promise to tell the whole truth? Nothing, at least in a lot of courts. Again, modern society scruples with things or events.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible or swearing. I don't swear. You know, some people had issues with it was against their
Religion.
even swearing on anything.
Yeah. There was. I can't remember how that worked out. Swearing. A lot of times it gets confused with cussing. And when you swear by something, sometimes rather than acknowledging that thing by which you swear holy and sacred, you secularize it and diminish it, bringing it in from God on high, wherever, into this earthly courtroom and human affairs. That might be what that was about. I don't know. It's curious how things evolve and